Thank you very much, Eunice. That was a super interesting presentation. Let me just move into the gallery mode. Thank you so much. We have over 30 participants listening to your presentation, Eunice. That's really almost top of all the colloquia that we had. Great interest, and also maybe a very fitting topic for these days, because as you may know, yesterday was the UNCCD Desertification and Drought Day, and the UNCCD have declared this year the Year of Pastoralists. So even yesterday we were celebrating pastoralism at a session here in Bonn with representatives of Infrarange Déclaré and Interfaces and the UNCCD and others at IDOS. And so I think that your presentation is a great contribution to the Desertification and Drought Day 2026. Thank you very much, Eunice, for that presentation. And with that, I would like to open the floor for discussion. So Eunice has given us a lot of food for thought and for maybe adding own observations or exploring a little bit deeper some of the issues that you mentioned on the compensation mechanisms of young herders, young Fulani herders in northern Benin. Please, the floor is open. While people are thinking of their questions, maybe, okay, Abraham, Zakaria, please, you go ahead first. I'll just hold my question for later. And then afterwards, okay. Oscar and Pofo.
Yes, so I was just acknowledging the good presentation of Sarpong and the good work she have done for the past few years. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I just have one or two key observations. I was following the inter-household analysis to the story of the young boy, of the header. So I was trying to link the inter-household relation with the voice of the young header. Like at the voice of the young header, you did mention that the young boy moved to Nigeria or other jurisdiction, if I get you right. But in the inter-household relation aspect of that first diagram, I didn't hear how the relations, some of them are all that relation within the Benin, or that relation extend to other jurisdictions, let's say different countries and all that. If that's also the case, some of them are not their intra-household relations are not just within the Benin. Those who are outside or those who move out of the Benin, how do they also get the benefit or get their share in terms of the compensation you talk about? So that's just my few observation. Where did they come from? Are they all from the same jurisdiction? The inter-household relations, are they the same place or different places? So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Do you want to answer that question? And then afterwards we go to the next one.
Okay, so thank you so much, AB. I think the cases were two different cases. So the one that you had mentioned about Nigeria, it was from the focus group discussion that a boy was giving a narration that his sibling is in Nigeria. But then to answer the question where the people are coming from, I think that's why I mentioned that kinship is very important. So if one boy leaves today, let's say he decides to go, the next moment another person is coming. So where do they come from? Coming from, I will not focus on the geography, but I'll mention the kinship relations. So kinship relations are very important to I don't want to say to get labor, but to bring people into the communities. So yes, and where they get the compensation from, or how the compensation. So if you don't fulfill your 6 months duty, it means you don't get a cow. And even what I saw was that some herders or pastoralists are even changing these forms of compensation. Because to be giving calves out or a cow out, it means that all your head will be going. So some even choose to give money in forms of compensation. But if you don't complete all your 6 months, it means that you don't have any compensation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. I had Oscar's hand, but he has taken his hand down.
I can.
You can, please. And then after that, we have Tan and then Kader, please.
Yeah.
Oscar, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eunice, for this very interesting presentation. I think I missed the introductory part, so pardon me if maybe perhaps this question might have been answered. I want to know the relationship between the herders and farmers, and how is the transition from being a herder to farming take place? I mean, how is the transition? Is there any transition? How does it take place? And what is the relationship between the farmers and the herders? I mean, we know about what is happening in Nigeria. So I want to know if similar stuff are happening in Benin, or what is the relationship? And is there a transition? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think in the introduction I mentioned that pastoralism had been the domain of Fulani communities, but then this is changing. So even the pastoralists themselves are now agropastoralists. So what we observe is that there are not pure pastoralism, because people tend to settle. Those practicing, let me say, pastoralism alone are coming from Niger or from the other regions, but from northern Benin, our observation shows that most Fulani communities are now agropastoralists. So they combine farming with pastoralism. And that is where I guess I say that is where the tension raises the more, because we have other ethnic groups who have not, let me say, switched, or they are still in the domains of what they were practicing. For instance, when we look at ethnic groups like the Bariba or the Nago, for Baribas, they were traditionally whole farmers. They are still in farming. And when we look at Nago, they have a history of hunting. Of course, they have changed and they are still in the farming as well. But then the tension becomes higher, because Fulanis are now pastoralists and Fulanis are now herders. So the land use competition, it's increasing. And also in Benin, I think in 2023, there was a ban on transhumance, that you cannot send your herd outside a particular commune or even outside the country. But the government has to reconsider that decision, and in 2024 reversed it, because we cannot have the same cattle, or let's say the same herd, the same crops in the same locality. Particularly in rainy seasons, the tensions are so much intense. So I think that's where the transition is. So the transition has not been like all of a sudden we see Fulanis. It has been gradual, to the extent that even the traditionally, let's say the farmers, did not see. So now Fulanis are into subsistence farming, and even farming, I would say, even much more than even some people who were, let's say, solely farmers. So the transition has been gradual, and now we see mixture of farming and pastoralism. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, you see a thumbs up, so that question was answered. Thank you very much. Tan, would you please go ahead with the next question?
Thank you very much, Eunice. Excellent talk. I just wonder, because yesterday we also talking about that in the gender issues in the herder, because women seem to be under visible into the pastoralism system. And in the talk you are talking here, I heard only about the boys who get the compensation, or they need the neighbor from the boys. Is there any case that if the girls are also working in the herd, but a different way, and they also get the compensation in some different way? Or maybe they can get the cows as well, or I don't know, maybe milk or something. Is this any way that the girl also presenting in such kind of neighbor exchange, neighbor borrow? I don't know. Because so far I heard only the story about the boys. Is it true?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so very true. And as I mentioned in the introduction, so it's a patriarchal society. So we see the men, but of course that does not mean that the women are not there. The women they might not be visible to our eyes, but they are very present. And so this is where the story gets interesting. In the household, when we have herders getting compensation, or when we have the herd moving outside the household, it means that it's affecting women. Because traditionally, in the past, we could have women going also on pastoralism, but now it has changed. So now it has become domains of men. If we have seen the young boys, because these changes require much, let me say, labor intensive, and sometimes in the household, we're trying to protect the girls. So trying to protect the girls means that the girls can take care of the cows or the livestock in the household. So what we saw was that in the community, women are tending to keep livestock, or let's say sheep, goats, and other small, let's say small livestock, but not going into cattle. But of course, there are women who are also owners of the cattle. In a Fulani tradition, a wife has a cow. That is the bride price that they paid. So they also have a cow, but just that they don't claim ownership to it. It's also in the jurisdiction of their husbands. So when we have the women in the household and then boys taking care of the cows, when we get milk, it's the domain of the woman to process the milk. But now most of the herds have been moved. In my conversation with veterinarian officers, they told me that in the commune of Chaulu, now the number of herd size have reduced. So before, I think the figure was around 52,000, but now we are counting to less than 40,000. And if the herd is moving, particularly it affects women, it also means that no milk. So I think that's the dimension that I want to mention there. And when in conversations with women, whether they want to engage in tending for cows, I think the conversation has not come there yet. It rather comes there when they get married. So that means that if a young boy is able to get his own herd, he will get married early, then the wife will get access to the milk. But to women also herding cattle, the conversation is not there yet. They have passed that stage because women used to, but now it has changed. But women are owners, or they also have their own cows in the herd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now have Kader, and then after that, Victor Asumani. Please, Kader, go ahead. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Eunice. That was an insightful presentation. I have two questions. Have you managed to check a bit like what is the economic situation of the boys leaving to come for this kind of jobs? I understand you mentioned kinship, but there might be other factors maybe determining the movement. Have you checked that? That is one question. I mean, I also understand that what you present is probably much more complex than that, but for the sake of explanation, you cannot go through all those complexities. My second question is, you mentioned Bukusera as your research area, but have you tried to see what is happening in other contexts? Because Bukusera is quite a particular region in Fulani, in northern Benin. And realities in Bukusera may diverge from the representation we may see in other parts of the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I think you really know the community because your pronunciation and everything. So good to know. So with the first question, the economic situation.
I'm pastoralist, by the way.
Ah, thank you. Then I should be on my guard now. Okay. So with the economic situation of the boys leaving home to come to a different community, I think there's no simple answer. I think there's no simple answer. There are diverse reasons that people showed me, but I want to cite the example of one young man who left Niger to come to Benin. From what he told me, he preferred to come because in Niger, it's more constraining to be heading or taking care of the livestock than in Benin. He explained to me that the situation in Benin is much calmer. And he even showed me pictures, or not pictures, the right word is marks on his body, whereby in Niger, he was being flogged. I think it's one area they didn't go into, talking about, I only focused on internal dimensions. But these boys are also subject to harsh conditions. So for instance, even in Benin, if you see a young boy going into a farm, the next moment, if it's not even that herder who had destroyed the farm, we will see the boy being flogged or being like they throw stones at them, they insult them. So all these conditions that particular young man explained to me made him leave Niger to come to Benin. But then when I had conversations with other young men to why they left their homes, as you could see, Some of them, they have agency, especially if they are older. But with younger people, it was a decision of their parents or a decision of their caretakers. So I think that opens to the second question, whether we study these social processes across other contexts. Yes, we did. So Bukusera is our primary site, but you understand that when we look at social processes, it's not limited to geography, as in a locality. So we also follow these processes in other neighboring communities, which were not even, let me say, Fulani communities. So we went to Alafiaru, we went all the way to Manigri, Basila, we also went to Kenikpanu, we studied all these. So what happens is that's why I mentioned that surrounding Fulani camps. So these camps, when, let's say, they go to Chachu, they will ask for a place, then they will settle. When they go to Kenikpanu, because they are not the owners of the land, they will ask for a village and they will settle. When we go to Basila, Manigri, so all these are what I termed as the surrounding camps. So not necessarily to Bukusera, but we also follow these social processes. And what we saw when we went to Basila and Manigri is that over there, it's not only with young boys, but we have older people. So in Bukusera, because the community is getting more enclosed, limited with land, you can only keep a herd as much as 25. So you cannot keep herd more than 25. And even with that, it means that you need to get a herder who is 18 years and above. So 2 herders to take care of the herd. But when we went to Basila, Manigri, and all the other places that they have large areas for people to, or for the herders to traverse, we saw that this time it wasn't only younger people. This time it was also adults, because the herd size was big. We can talk about 200 head. We can talk about 300. We can talk about 400. But the discussion that I only focused on having a head size of, let's say, between 10 to 25. But in Manigri, Basila, and even in Alafiaru, we have a great number of head size over there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this very interesting and deep answer to the question. Thank you. I would now like to call upon Victor Asomani, and after that I'll go into the chat and read a contribution from the chat. Victor, please, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. On the same presentation, I noted 2 things. First, I noted that the child, the head himself, was 11 years old. So to us in Malawi, we should also consider issues to do with the child labor. So what the policies there and laws pertaining to working with this such age of 11 years, isn't not a problem? Doesn't laws there prohibit the child labor? 1, 2, I'm also looking at the child rights. The issue is to do with paying back to a lost cow. Does laws there doesn't look into this? That paying, yes, paying back for the lost thing, again being the child himself. Yes, should look into these 2 things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Eunice, on child labor and child rights, children's rights.
Thank you very much. And I think I want to refer to Prof. Linda's comment. I think maybe she's a prophet. She saw that it's going to come, so she did put a comment there. He said, kindly pay attention to cultural myth, norms, and beliefs. And I think it answers the question. So, of course, I understand, and as I have explained, so if we are looking at the logics of what child labor is, yes, it's child labor. But as an anthropologist, my role is not to put in, I'm not saying it's normative framing, but to state that this is child labor. I only reported or explained what the local people, their perceptions, their beliefs, their norms, and their myths are. So I get the point that yes, in context, it's child labor, but then that's why I explained that to even the children, or to the kinship logic, it's a way of becoming, it's a social becoming, coming into adulthood. So the question is very valid if we should look at it as child labor, yes, but then as anthropologists, I think I want to stay with understanding the what I found from the perspectives of the people that have studied. I think that's how I'll answer the first question. Then the second question, it was intermittent. I couldn't quite hear, but if I understood correctly, so a lost cow, I don't know if I got the question, but it was about the compensation of the father's decision. And I think I explained that, so these are individual decisions. So I explained that households are not uniform. In my focus group discussion, when I had asked young boys whether they have had similar experiences, some of them told me no. Even when they have lost a cow, or let's say they didn't take care of the cow, the head well, and they destroyed the farm, it was the employers who had to pay when they went to the police station. So household decisions or an individual decision cannot be cut across, or to say that, oh, because the father, the grandfather didn't pay him, it cuts across all household. So that's why I explained that household decisions are peculiar to particular families. So some interlocutors said that even in cases whereby the head destroyed properties, it was not deducted from their compensation. So I think that's the comment, but please, I'm also open. Probably we can discuss the more on seeing Fulani young boys into herding as child labor. I think we should also open this for discussion, not only from my side.
Yes, thank you. Okay, cool. The next comment in the chat also goes in the same direction on the compensation. So Atoku Danjuma says, my contribution or addition here is that paying that price for a missing calf is unnecessary, because what I know they do here in Nigeria some years back, which I know, was that if the herder embarks on grazing for either for a short or longer grazing, one cow is normally assigned to the herder in case of a missing, sick, or death that may arise to cover up on the foreseen situation. Okay, so that is kind of a price to pay. That is a comment that comes here to us from Nigeria, I understand. Okay, and then I would like to move on to Fatoumata Yatara. Please, you have your hand up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sarpong, for your presentation. I just have a question. I want to know if there are any formal or informal institutions that are responsible for protecting the rights of these young pastoralists. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I think when it comes to I think when it comes to institution, the first institution to protect is what I term the kinship. So that's what I did in my analysis. So the same kinship that is supposed to protect, because I don't want to look at I think trying to understand the problem, we shouldn't only look at the state perspective. Because if in Benin, I'm going to mention like agencies like Anope or other agencies, these are far from what happens in daily routines, daily household. So if we are looking at institution, I think the first institution is the household, which we should focus on. So households have those roles. But notwithstanding, there are, in Benin, if you have seen placards and billboards, you see where we show child labor, but it all comes back to, I think, reopening the question to discuss, do we see Fulani herding young boys? Because when I was young and my father sends me to the farm, to his cocoa farm, I don't know whether I term it as child labor. So probably we also sitting here should think from the perspective of the people. But yeah, I think that's how I answer. It's not yes, it's not no. I think it opens more for discussion. Probably the professors can also share their takes on this. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's always a difference between paid labor and family duties, obviously. Yeah. Sure. Okay, Peter has a question as well here. Pete, please.
All right, Eunice, thank you so much. Such a nice presentation. I have two questions. One is quite methodological. You use ethnography, and that is the only methodology we had. We never heard about how many youth you actually engage in your work in terms of interview or focus group discussion. It will be good for us to know how many were actually engaged. The second thing is that your report shows that the decision on compensation is often or is made by the parents of the boys. It's not the boys who make the decision or negotiate. It's often made by the parents of the boys. So did you engage the parents of the boys to know what drives them to push their children into such what they call engagement? Could it only be the compensation, or there's something beyond that?
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. And I think you are privy to the field because you have been in Bukusera and then the surrounding areas.
Oh, yes.
All right, so on methods, on the number of interviews, I think that's why I mentioned that we followed social processes. Let me cite this example. If I'm going to focus on the number of interviews, it will be more because I have stayed in the community for so many years. Don't forget that when we look at social events or understanding social processes, it's not only when we sit in interviews. So even in a church announcement, we can be talking about heading. And also in let's say normal conversations. So talking with a boy, walking with a boy, all these are conversations. That's why I did not mention that I interviewed 10 people, I interviewed 15 people, I interviewed 20 people, because even sitting in a bus, sitting in a bus, sitting in places, in churches, places that you might even not think that this is a formal interview setting. It is. For anthropologists, that's how we view the social processes. So that's how I did not number the number of interviews that I did, because the social world is more complex than numbering interviews. But I can tell you in my focus group discussions, we were groups, in the first one that I did with one family, the age range was 9 to 27. That was the first one. But even the 9, I was contemplating because there were some boys who are as young as 5 years old, and there are moments they follow their brothers to heading. So we also consider them as part of the focus group discussions. I think that's what I want to mention for the first. And the second, whether we engage parents to ask in the communities, and there was a picture I did not show. One morning I walked with one mother for her to send food. As early as 6 a.m. we were sending food to the young boy. I didn't show pictures of how the boys, they sleep, but then they have this places that they sleep because they sleep with the animals. So they have this mat. It can be a mat or it can be an area, or like, let's say, a small canopy that they made with sticks, and the mother sent food to the son in the morning. So for this particular boy that I accompanied the mother, it's part of how agricultural production, it's part of the household production. So if I should put it, how dare me go and ask a mother, why you make your boy work in this setting? No, I dare not ask, because it's part of the agricultural production. But then the other boys who have come from the neighboring communities, I was not able to trace their parents. As I mentioned, even the boy who left in my first case, I didn't even know his surname. He ran and I wasn't able to engage. But the parents in Bukusera, or the parents in surrounding communities, I don't think I had the urge to ask them, because most of them were raised as pastoralists. So to ask why you let your boys engage. Some boys choose to become pastoralists. Some wants to go to school. Some parents see that you need to. Let me give this example. There is a particular family that the man told me when he was young, they needed people to go to school. And I think you know the story, whereby you had to do this. And if your hand reaches here, you could go to school. What saved him was that his hand could not reach. So then it was not possible. So all these things, let me say, they are stories that shaped people's decisions in the past. And now it's reproducing kinship. I think that's what we should think about. It's reproducing kinship. They are pastoralists, so they have to reproduce it. Yeah, I think that's what I will explain, whether we engage parents to ask them of their rules.
Thank you. We just get a couple of comments in. Here, Tan was asking about the age, at which age are the boys independent? And let me just say, Kada just added something. Having a cow is essential to Fulani identity. Sending a boy to work for a family member can help him embody this identity, especially if his parents lack a cow for various reasons. So it's more than labor. Okay, so that's two additional points. Maybe you can answer the question on the independence. Maybe before you do, I add also a point of question that fits there. And my question was whether all of the Fulani boys, in order to become independent, have to do at least a 6 months service kind of period, or you know, maybe you can answer both things together.
Okay, so the 6 months compensation period is new, so it's a transformation. So I think in the history, I did explain that the head belonged to the family. So in time past, we were not even talking about compensation. We were talking about taking care of your father's head. And in future, if your father is deceased, then the sons are sharing the head. But sociocultural and also transformations happening. Now people need income. People need to also survive, sustain. So that is where the concept of compensation come in. But in my thinking, I also think the compensation came in when, even among the Fulanis themselves, they started to send their children to school. Because for a family member, you are not thinking of compensation. You are thinking of take care of the head. Then later you have access to the head. But once children started to go to school, once children started to migrate, once other members could not take care of the head, then a foreign, or let me say, a new form of compensation has to be introduced. So in their logic, compensation is new. That's how come it's still informal and we are still negotiating compensation. So it's not a formal contract. So if you should ask a young boy if he's working for his father, whether he's compensated, he will say no. If we are using our terms to understand them, he will say no. He's working for his father. He might not even say working for his father. He will say, I'm part of the household, contributing to a household. But then members coming from the outside, I think that's where the concept of compensations are coming in. Yeah.
Okay, and the age of independence? Tan's question.
Sorry?
Tan asked the question, at what age the boys become independent?
It still depends, because as I explained in the kinship, you could see that even in Adamu's household, the elder son is still dependent on the father. So in kinship relations, the concept of interdependence or dependence I'll say it's a bit tricky, because in the households or in the communities that I work with, you can be an adult. So far as your father is alive, you are not dependent, you are not independent. So I think it's the same logic. That's my thing. The same logic comes with the children. Of course, they can own their head. Of course, they can. But the concept of dependency, or I think for Fulanis, it doesn't really sit, because it's more of kinship. It's more of web. It's more of, because they need that coherence to sustain the economy. Yeah. So if I'm reflecting, yeah.
And can they only marry once they have a herd of themselves? Or is that independent from each other?
It depends. I'll say yes, because now land is also involved. So just having a herd, you need land. So you need your own land. So I think it's tricky. I wish my communities have joined this so that they can explain from there, because I don't want to impose on them what their kinship say. But when it comes to marriage, as I mentioned, what I saw was that when young men, they have their own herd, they have a piece of land, it's easier for them to get married. But even when they are married, they are still part of their father's household. You can have one son, you can have 2 children, 3 children, you're still part of your father's household till your father is deceased. Societies are changing. For instance, we see cash crops like cashews changing how the lands are, but in their logic, it's not a property. It's not your head. I went with a man in Basila, and he has more than 200 head. And then when I'm at, and he has his home in his father's compound. That's so interesting. So he lives in Basila, but his house is in his father's compound. And when I'm asking him about whether the head is for him, and sometimes he laughs at the question I pose to him, because he goes like, for Fulani, it's your father. It's your father. You give respect to your father. So he dare not claim ownership to the head. Of course, he has ownership to the head, but their logic is the head.
Cool. Thank you so much, Eunice. You've seen how much interest there was in your topic. I'm not sure, do we have exhausted all the questions? I've seen some people already leaving, some people already sending greetings and appreciations around. Maybe we have here another comment in the chat. Referring to an 11-year-old can be misleading, as a Fulani boy of that age, or any boy that grows in rural areas, is likely much more mature than the average 11-year-old. I think absolutely true. Yeah. All right. I think because time has run out, sorry, Peter. Peter still has a couple of comments, so he can send them over to you, Eunice, and everybody else can also engage with Eunice separately on a one-by-one. And we all wish you good luck in the further analysis of your data and writing your PhD thesis and your career. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.